Peace and love, everyone. This is Sister Iman. How's everyone is doing? I will continue to read the NESARA Book 1 by David E. Robinson. I'm going to read pages 111 through 133. And I'm going to start reading. Spiritual aspects of NESARA. We occasionally hear comments that NESARA is not spiritual because some people perceive that NESARA is only about money. We are amused when we hear these comments because we know many people who consider themselves spiritually oriented who constantly feel anxiety and fear because they don't have enough money to pay their bills. These people are not able to pursue their spiritual desires to help improve the world because they are barely able to house, clothe, and feed themselves. They work in jobs they do not find fulfilling, or they do work that barely brings them enough money to survive. People often fail to appreciate that having enough money gives one more personal autonomy and energy to live one's spiritual values and take action to help humanity or the world. Many people have gotten confused by the wrong idea that money is evil, when in fact, the love of money is the root of all evil. Or perhaps they think that being spiritual means to take a vow of poverty consciously or unconsciously. Money is energy and it is neutral. It can be used for good or for bad, but money itself is neutral. Money is the way we exchange our energy and time for something we need that has been created through the time and energy of other people. When we look around to see what humanitarian activities are undertaken by those we consider to be spiritual, we inevitably see that these spiritual people use money to accomplish many of their humanitarian improvement projects. The Christian organization known as Feed the Children raised 553 million in cash and gifts in 2002 and spent 514 million to provide food, shelter, medical services, disaster relief, education, and other services to needy children in their communities around the world. Whether it is a starving child in Africa or a married couple in the United States who are bickering about not having the money to pay their bills and struggling to obtain food, shelter, and safety for their family. Most people cannot be their best selves. In expressing their spiritual feelings, lack of money keeps people from becoming as spiritual as they would like to be due to anxiety, fear, frustration, and all the other emotions they experience in struggling to survive. A famous expert, Maslow, helps us to understand that unless people have their basic needs met, they do not have the ability to focus on higher matters. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, listed below, helps us see that the basic needs of hunger, thirst, safety, etc., must be satisfied before people can raise themselves to a higher status where they can live in harmony with others and also obtain self esteem through the through their achievements. Psychological, hunger, thirst, bodily comforts, etc. Safety, security, out of danger, belongingness and love, affiliate with others, be accepted and esteemed to achieve, be competent, gain approval and recognition. NESARA immediately puts extra cash into Americans' pockets by providing bank debt forgiveness and the abolishment of the federal income taxes. The month of NESARA's announcement. Americans will stop paying income taxes and credit card debts, mortgages, car loans, education loans, and all other bank related debts, as these are forgiven. The month of NESARA is announced will result in providing a windfall of cash in America's pockets in numerous ways. NESARA also removes the current institutionalized robbery of people's money performed by the current banking systems due to high interest rates and compound interest, which is unconstitutional. The Federal Reserve banking system is essentially stealing money from Americans every day. NESARA provides many benefits, which result in people having more money in their pockets. It will be easier for people to pay for their basic needs of food, shelter, and safety after NESARA is announced because most people will actually have more of the money they receive available to them to spend instead of paying income taxes and paying off bank debts. This increase in money will enable people to begin to lift themselves out of financial struggle and to have less anxiety and frustration due to lack of money. This can give them the peace of mind and energy to focus on their spiritual lives. This is another benefit to NESARA that is not widely understood, but which very definitely supports spiritual values. Are you aware that in the last few years since the 9/11 attacks, the Bush regime has instructed the FBI to label many good Americans as potential terrorists? In late 2001 and all through 2002, police departments around the country were being trained by NSA and FBI experts in how to spot potential terrorists. I recall one FBI regional office was putting out posters describing potential terrorists. Among those listed were any people who quote the Constitution and Christians who homeschool their children. The powers to interfere with American lives are given in the Bush regime Patriot Act and follow up legislation which are attacks on Americans' freedom. NESARA will totally obliterate the misnamed Patriot Act and follow up legislation as well as all legislation which has been attacking our Constitution and our civil rights. NESARA will restore to Americans their rights to pursue living their spiritual values, and American will be encouraged to know the Constitution. In addition, after NESARA's announcement, there will be vast amounts of humanitarian prosperity programs, funds, which will finally be released to be used for world improvements. Because most of the world's banking systems are owned by the Illuminati, these funds have been kept from being released until after the banking law changes. initiated by NESARA in the United States and related international banking law changes can and will protect these vast funds. Literally, millions of ordinary people will be receiving these funds and will be lawfully required to use these funds to improve the world. The world improvement projects being funded by the prosperity programs will benefit people in need and our world in many ways. In addition, there will be the need for people to staff the many improvement projects activities. Spirituality, spiritually oriented people who wish to be involved in improvement projects will have opportunities to make money and fulfill their love of people, spirit, and the planet by participating in these world improvement projects. In addition, after NESARA is announced, there will be very spiritually uplifting news, which will finally be televised and reported for the first time in modern history. The truth about the true divinity of Earth humans will become known in miraculous ways. This is all we can say about this subject at this time. However, there is much more we will be able to discuss after NESARA's announcement. This grand news will only be possible after NESARA is announced. We hope perhaps that now it's obvious why many of us see NESARA as primary spiritual in nature with down-to-earth benefits, which set a new foundation for a much better world. NESARA, yes, blessing and love. Startling facts concerning 9/11. World Trade Center 7 held all the records of fraud, all sorts that involved people at Enron, and Bush was part of the Enron fraud. It also had the antitrust suit against Microsoft. Coincidence? We don't think so. Also, the towers required some 200 million in renovations and improvements, most of which related to removal and replacement of building materials declared to be health hazards in the years since the towers were built. It was well known by the city of New York that the World Trade Center was an asbestos bombshell. For years, the Port Authority treated the building like an aging dinosaur, attempting on several occasions to get permits to demolish the building for liability reasons, about being turned down due to known asbestos problem. Further, it was well known the only reason the building was still standing until 9/11 was because it was too costly to disassemble the Twin Towers floor by floor, since the Port Authority was prohibited legally from demolishing the building. Demoing it down would be much, much cheaper. Larry Silverstein was the leaseholder on the Twin Towers and bought it at $3.2 billion and will soon collect $7.1 billion or more. It's all about the money. He got his wish for a demolition and cost him nothing. Weighing in at $3.2 billion, the acquisition of the 99-year leasehold of the World Trade Center was the largest of the year. One other thing that the public did not know, the unconstitutional Patriot Act was already written and was sitting on the shelf weeks before 9/11 happened. The smoking gun are the BTS reports found on the bts.gov website that tracks every single flight going in and out, and flights 11 and 77 did not fly on that day whatsoever. American Airlines confirmed this with an edit to Wikipedia. Is not a place for 100% credible info. However, Wikipedia tracks all IP addresses that make corrections on the website. We even ran the IP address ourselves, and indeed, American Airlines did the edit for flights 11 and 77 on that day. Is someone at American Airlines trying to tell Americans something? Look, oh, sorry. 1 second. The biggest lie is that a huge jumbo jet hit the Pentagon with no damage to the lawn while flying super low to the ground without the massive turbine engines scraping the lawn. Where the nose of the plane hit? Impossible. Just look at the pictures that's on the book. Rumsfeld admitted to 2.3 trillion missing on September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11, and where the plane hit. Took out the servers. 9/11 was clearly staged, especially with them having insiders standing ready with video cameras to catch the first plane to hit. However, we all know by now that the video feeds given to the news were altered and faked. Since 9/11, our constitutional rights has been systematically dismantled. USA Patriot Act, a 342-page document presented to Congress one day before voting on it, and that allows the government to access to your bank and email accounts, as well as your medical and phone records with no court order. They can also search your home anytime without a warrant. USA Patriot Act 2. This one allows secret government arrests, the legal authority to seize your American citizenship, and the extraction of your DNA if you are deemed a potential terrorist. Military Commission Act of 2006 ends habeas corpus, the right to an attorney and the right to court review on one's detention and arrest. Without this most basic right, all other rights are gone too, since anyone can be detained indefinitely. Now, anyone may be arrested and incarcerated and nobody would know. NSPD 51, a directive signed by George W. Bush on May 9th, 2007, that allows the president to declare martial law, effectively transforming the U.S. into a dictatorship with no checks and balances from the legislative or judicial branches. Parts of this directive are considered classified, and members of Congress have been denied the right to review it. Protect America Act of 2007 allows unprecedented domestic wiretapping and surveillance activities with a reduction in FISA court oversight. Probable cause is not needed. John Warner Defense Authorization Act, signed by George W. Bush on October 17, 2007. This act allowed the president to declare a public emergency and station troops anywhere in America without the consent of the governor or local authorities to suppress public disorder. Homegrown Terrorism and Radicalization Act passed overwhelmingly by Congress on October 23rd, 2007, is now awaiting a Senate vote. This act will beget a new crackdown on dissent and the constitutional rights of American citizens. The definition of terrorism and extremism are so vogue that they could be used to generalize against any group that is working against the policies of administration. In this bill, violent radicalization criminalize thought and ideology, while homegrown terrorism is defined as the plain use of force to coerce the government. The term force could encompass political activities such as protests, marches, or any form of nonviolent resistance. Halliburton confirms camp constructed over 3,700 FEMA camps in America. For what? Halliburton's immigrants detention centers, Homeland Security contracts for vast new detention camps. Halliburton confirms concentration camps already constructed. KBR awarded Homeland Security contract worth up to $385 million. This is from Halliburton's own website. The latest form is Cybersecurity Act 773. A new cybersecurity bill will grant the president unprecedented power to shut down the internet and ignore privacy laws. The bill was written by no other than the infamous Rockefeller family member. The internet should have never been invented. Where did the term Al Qaeda came from? Former British Foreign Secretary Robin Cook wrote that the word Al Qaeda should be translated as the database, and originally referred to the computer file of the thousands of Mujahideen militants who were recruited and trained with CIA to help to defeat the Russians. Power is an elusive thing. It's ultimately a fine balance of mass psychology built up through the momentum of the past. Changing the very top of the world's power structure involves a shift in the psychology of the people who rule the planet. That change is then followed by a change in public announcements and actions. People watching the collapse of the current world regime are getting impatient because it seems to be taking so much time. They need to understand that changing a system that has existed for thousands of years needs to be handled with great care in order to avoid chaos, starvation, and war. Nonetheless, the signs of global regime change are everywhere. To those leaning on the sustaining infinite, today is big with blessings. The wakeful shepherd beholds the first faint morning beams. Ea cometh the full radiance of a rising day. So shone the pale star to the prophet shepherds. Yet it transversed the night and come where it cradled obscurity, lay the Bethlehem babe, the human hero of Christ, truth, who would make plain to be knighted, understanding the way of salvation through Christ Jesus, till across a night of terror should dawn the morning beams and shine the golden star of being. The wise men were led to behold and to follow this day star of divine science, lightening the way to eternal harmony. The type the time for thinkers has come. Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Hold on one second. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome to enjoy the refuge of the United States of America, regardless of color, nationality, or creed, and the spirit of Jesus Christ. For it is written, come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Matthew 11:28. Christian obligations. Unto everyone that health shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that health not shall be taken away, even that which he helped. Christ Jesus, Matthew 25:29. It is necessary and proper now to lay the plans and strategy for establishing an American standard of living higher than we are ever known before. As a Christian nation, we cannot be content no matter how high that general standard of living may be. If some fraction of our people, whether it be 1/3 or 1/5 fraction of our people, whether it be 1/3 or 1/5 or 1/10, is ill fed, ill clothed, ill housed, and insecure. This republic had its beginning and grew to its present strength under the protection of certain inalienable political rights, among them the right of free speech, free press, free worship, freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures, and trial by jury. These were and no, I'm sorry. These were and are our rights of liberty and life. As our nation has grown in size and stature, however, as our industrial economy expanded, these political rights must be enhanced by the voluntary obligations of Christian brotherhood. We have come to clear realization of the fact that true individual freedom cannot exist without economic independence and security. People who are hungry and lacking meaningful occupation are the stuff of which dictatorships are made. In our day, these economic truth has been accepted as self-evident. We have accepted today the voluntary obligations of which we speak, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station, race, or creed. Among these necessities are the, the necessity for a useful and remunerative occupation, and the industries or shops or farms or mines or homes of the nation. The necessity to acquire enough to provide adequate food and clothing and recreation, the necessity of every farmer to raise and sell his products at a return which will give him and his family a decent living, the necessity of every businessman, large and small, to trade in an atmosphere of freedom from unfair competition and domination by monopolies at home or abroad, the necessity of every family to a decent home, the necessity for adequate medical care and the opportunity to achieve and enjoy good health, the necessity of adequate protection from the economic fears of sickness, accidents, unemployment, and old age, the necessity for a good education. All of these necessities spell security. So we must be prepared to move forward in the implementation of these necessities to new goals of human endeavor, well being, and happiness. This republic's rightful place in the world depends in large part upon how fully these and similar necessities are fulfilled in practice for all our citizens. For unless there is security here at home, there cannot be lasting peace in the world. Too many times the church has refused to take heightish political action, hiding behind their cowardice of 501c3 tax exemption. We must abandon the fatal ideology of separation of church and state. It was the intent of the founding fathers to keep the church from influencing the state. It was their intent to keep the state. Hold on. I'm going to read it again. It was their intent to keep the state from influencing the church. However, the state now controls the church, but the church no longer influences the state. We cannot pass laws forcing people to live righteously, but we can't pass laws to keep them from inflicting their evil upon society. That is the goal of the main free state and why we heartily endorse and encourage your participation in the Republic for the United States of America. So that is the end of the NESARA Book 1 by David E. Robinson. NESARA 1 and NESARA 2, you can order these on Amazon. And I will begin to read the NESARA 2 at another time. Thank you for joining my live stream. I will close out this stream. Like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace.